This episode discusses child exploitation, drug-related deaths, and other sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to The Heat Is On, an investigative miniseries by Scrolling to Death in partnership with Heat Initiative. I'm Nikki Petrosi, host of Scrolling to Death.
And I'm Sarah Gardner, CEO of Heat Initiative. And today is part 2 of The Heat Is On Snapchat. Today, in part 2, we are turning up the heat. We'll uncover how Snapchat execs respond when confronted with these dangers, from dismissing employee warnings to ignoring grieving parents. You'll hear how the company resists working with law enforcement, fails to support families who've lost their children, and hides behind weak parental controls that do almost nothing to keep kids safe. This episode isn't just about what Snapchat has done, it's about what they refuse to do, which is why we are sounding the alarm on Snapchat, and we're going to provide tangible ways they could make the platform safer.
That is why we're bringing the heat to Snap. So we ended last episode talking about a lot of different harms that Snapchat exposes our children to. We alluded to the fact that it's actually the product design of Snapchat that instigates or in some cases causes these harms. And it's features like Snap Map, My Eyes Only Data Vault, where children can hide content behind a passcode, disappearing messages, the Snap Score, which drives addiction and dependence, Quick Ad, which suggests strangers to children, and the Spotlight feed, which is the algorithmic feed of content trying to keep kids on as long as possible. Now, what's horrible about all of this is that most parents don't know that all of that functionality exists. They think that this is just a messaging app.
To try and differentiate or disassociate with other social media, Snap has tried to rebrand themselves from the other social media companies to avoid the fact that they are a social media company harming kids. Through their campaign, Less Social Media, More Snapchat, which is the most ironic and crazy sentence that has ever been said out loud. And that campaign launched in early 2024.
I mean, I remember seeing all the billboards that said less social media, more Snapchat. This was right around the time that there was going to be a vote for the Kids Online Safety Act to regulate social media and force them to be safer for children. And it was, I mean, it's more than ironic. It's purposeful that the campaign came out at that same time. They're trying to avoid regulation and also trying to convince parents that they're somehow safer for kids than other social media, although they're social media too. And I think that really worked. Like parents, a lot of parents believe that they are not social media.
So I think the thing that you really need to know as a parent in this instance is the way they're getting away with trying to say they're not social media is because they're claiming that your kid is having like one-to-one conversations like with kids that they know, like they're friends. But what we've talked about in the previous episode and you share all the time on your podcast is that they are being recommended people they don't know who are becoming their friends. So now they're directly communicating one-to-one with potential strangers, not just people they know. But there also is the Spotlight feature, which is like recommended other people's videos, content. And that is like the definition of social media is being able to sort of scroll around and see what random people are posting on a platform, right?
Yeah. Socialize with other people through sharing user-generated media. And like I did a breakdown, like a comparison of Instagram to Snapchat recently. And if you just go through the features, they're nearly identical. They look a little different. They're in different places, but it's just laughable. Maybe when Snapchat started out as the sexting disappearing message app, okay, we could call it a messaging app, not social media. But the way that it has evolved and the functionality that they've added defines them as social media. So we just want to make that very clear that we're not to believe their headlines. So recently, Evan Spiegel, CEO of Snapchat, his wife, Miranda Kerr, who we may know, she's like a Victoria's Secret model. She did an interview on a very popular podcast talking about, and they talked about her kids and screen time. And they have a 14-year-old who she says does not use social media. They think that is important, but he uses Snapchat to message his friends.
And we talk about our teenager, who is 14. He doesn't have social media, which we think is important, but he does have Snapchat, which is the only way he communicates with his friends. Like, they don't really text, they just snap each other.
This statement that he can't use social media, but he uses Snapchat, it just sounds very media trained to kind of be in line with the PR play that Snapchat's putting out. So Snapchat did offer a parental control system to parents in August of 2022 called the Family Center. Unfortunately, these parental controls completely missed the mark. We are going to listen to Laura Marquez Garrett describe Snapchat's Family Center.
They create these family centers because they want parents to feel safe. They want parents to allow their kids to use them. That is the purpose. Now, it is a scenario where they're doing this so that parents will say, oh, look, there's a safety center. It really is a kid app. Hey, so that kids can say, hey, mom, dad, there's a safety center. Don't worry about it. So that they look better in the public eye. But in reality, these are completely ineffective. They know it. We know it.
The thing with these parental controls, there's a lot of decisions being made on the company's end that put kids in harm's way. And then they put out parental controls to put responsibility on parents to try to keep their kids safe on a platform that puts them in harm's way. So I just fully disagree with a lot of the parental control approaches that these companies are taking. But Snapchat's is, when I interview people, Snapchat seems to be the most confusing and ineffective parental control system.
Can you even explain where it sits? Where does the Family Center sit?
In order for parents to use the Family Center on Snapchat, parents have to have their own account. So first of all, they're requiring parents to now have a Snapchat account, just doubling their user account, right? And then parents have to somehow connect
add their kid to theirs.
And then there's times when children can disable or change things on their end. So it's very confusing and ineffective. And this is on purpose. So I interviewed a former Snapchat executive. Her and I talked about Snapchat's Family Center, and she was there when they were having discussions about building it. And so I want to show you what she said.
The prevailing wisdom at the time when I was at Snapchat was the open question of whether parents would actually even use them or not. Many executives didn't think they would. That is actually borne out to be true. Very few people use the parental controls. But it's a little bit of a chicken or an egg scenario. I would argue they're not really that helpful.
There's a stat about how little parental controls are used, and it's really deceiving because it makes it seem like parents aren't trying, but it's actually because they don't know about them and have not been told how to use them properly, and all of the above. And so then it actually is used against doing more of them because internally they're like, look, no one's using it. Why would we invest in this?
Right, completely.
So it's that it's her chicken and eggs analogy is very on point.
Yeah, and really that's borne out to be less than 1% of parents use the parental controls on Snapchat. So 99% of children on there are not being monitored anyways. So why would they invest in something that parents aren't going to use? This wasn't for a lack of trying, though. There are great people that work at these companies that actually want to protect kids. And there are internal emails from trust and safety team members at Snapchat saying, quote, they had little contact with upper management compared to their work at other social media companies, and that there was pushback in trying to add in-app safety mechanisms because Snap CEO Evan Spiegel prioritized design. So when they're prioritizing design over safety, what happens then?
It becomes more unsafe. I'll never forget an engineer saying something to me the millions of dollars a company will spend on an app going 1 second faster outpaces what they'll spend on child safety 10x, 100x.
Yeah.
The goal and the focus is always more beautiful, faster, more efficient. And usually stoplights, speed bumps, anything that slows a kid down, that gives them more options, in their minds makes that messier.
Yeah.
And it slows it down.
Right.
Because it's computing more things in a split second.
Interesting. So you talk about how much money they spend on things like that and design and making it faster. Actually, I was surprised when I went on Instagram to Snapchat's profile, and I saw that their most recent brand partnerships were with Kylie Jenner and Machine Gun Kelly, who have to be charging them many millions of dollars to be promoting Snapchat. And I'm thinking, how much are we spending on those celebrity partnerships that could be funneled to keeping the kids safe that are dying?
But that's not their business model.
I know.
No, I'm just telling you
know.
what we're up against, which is why we all have to rise up together because
Yeah.
like their business model, they're trying to grow their sales and make more money. They didn't set out to build an app that was safe for kids. We know that.
Right.
Let's briefly address the issue of like celebrity sponsorship for a minute because this comes up in multiple conversations about many different companies. But you were just talking specifically about Snapchat. Clearly the amount of money they're spending bringing in celebrity influencers to promote Snap. What should a Kylie Jenner or a Machine Gun Kelly do in these instances when companies are coming to partner with them? We would love to give you both a list of questions that you can ask Evan and you can ask Mark Zuckerberg about how they're protecting kids or not, that hopefully would be some kind of criteria as to whether you would want to partner with them, because are they really keeping kids safe on the platform or just using your celebrity to draw more money and make more money?
But we also can't trust their answers to those questions
You
either.
mean the company's answers?
Snap's answers. I would say Google Snapchat, like I said in the last episode, in part 1 of this episode, and see how many news articles are on that first page before you have to go to page 2 about predators finding children on Snap and sexually assaulting them.
I feel pretty confident that if Kylie Jenner knew all the things that we know about Snap, that she would think twice before partnering with them, especially as the mom of 2 really small kids.
100%. Somebody send this to Kylie Jenner.
We know Snap has not been proactive about child safety, but what happens when it comes to their attention that a child has been seriously harmed or died? Like at that point, what do they do and how do they engage with the families?
We have a lot of firsthand reports of what Snapchat has done or not done when they've been contacted by families who've lost children or by law enforcement. So I just want to play a lineup of clips that's going to really make the point here for us.
It's my experience that law enforcement doesn't expect anything from them. Like, it's almost like it's not their problem because they can't get anything from Snapchat. It's almost like a hopeless waste of time for them because the platforms don't really work with them.
So we have Aaron, whose son's drug dealer was already reported to Snapchat, already subpoenaed Snapchat for his records. They did not respond. Avery dies and then still did not respond to another subpoena in Avery's case.
Snap slowing down or like blocking law enforcement from catching bad guys who are killing kids is like the worst thing I've ever heard. Like, it is just like, justify that to me. Even if you're saying we're not a part of it happening, it's not our fault that this happened to this kid, to not be doing everything you possibly could to aid that investigation, in my mind, is criminal.
Well, it gets worse.
A couple months later, I was having lunch with one of Alexander's friends, and I asked her just on a whim, like, hey, do you know where he got it? And she instantly produced this drug dealer on Snapchat for me. And then shortly after that, a mom reached out to me and sent me pictures of this drug dealer talking about sending pictures of this drug dealer talking about Alex on Snapchat. Her son had been killed by the same drug dealer.
So now we have someone I interviewed very recently, Anna McAdams. Her daughter, Elliston, her photos were stolen actually from Instagram, and a bunch of her friends put through a Nudify app by a peer at school and then distributed out on Snapchat. So Snapchat was the distribution of all of these AI-generated nude images. And when Anna and all these other parents tried to contact Snapchat to get help, she'll tell you what happened. Was there any help from Snap in like getting these images down or stopping this from happening once you found out?
No, and we were never actually able to get a hold of them. So on the app, you have to fill out the intake form. And so there's not a phone number, there's not an email, it's an intake form. So all the parents filled it out multiple times. We even got a warrant from our local sheriff to try to get the images taken down, and they never responded to us.
Snapchat never responded to the police warrant for child sexual abuse material on their platform.
That's what we were told when the sheriff did the initial warrant. They were like, don't expect to hear anything, I'm sorry, but we never hear back from them.
Police never hear back from Snapchat when a warrant is filed to remove things like child sexual abuse material from their platform. And that's what the investigator said.
Unfortunately, that does not surprise me, having been in that world for a really long time and knowing just the scale of how much of it is on there and the fact that it's not often optimized and they're inundated with requests and reports. I'm not excusing it. It just goes to show how it's broken. That part of the system of them like responding is broken.
And whatever resources they need to dump into being able to just respond and get law enforcement what they need to catch criminals in those moments when kids need help. Like that needs to be a priority. And that kind of goes into our next section, which we're going to talk about what could Snap actually do to protect children on their platform. So before we get into some recommendations that are literally just simple programming changes that they could make overnight, we might feel a little overwhelmed right now, like this entire platform is broken, its entire basis is wrong. Like, where are you at with trying to fix Snapchat?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest today, because like this is one where you are much more an expert than I am, just in terms of like the intricacies and like all the different filters and things like that. And I'm at a point where I am questioning whether it can be fixed and made safe for kids because of the sheer design of it. And because what differentiates it from like Instagram are the things that make it dangerous, like ephemeral messaging.
Right.
So I am questioning whether this is a leave Snap moment for good and find somewhere else to go, and or also at the same time pressuring them to make changes.
And it feels like, based on a lot of the internal documents that we've reviewed, some of these suggestions for safety just get cut off at the executive level. Would it be helpful to maybe have an executive team on board that cared about kids a little more?
Oh, yeah. But also, like, if the executives actually thought that they would lose a significant portion of their customer base because of this, they would change it.
Okay.
If every person in America read that Rolling Stone article again now, and that story stayed present in people's minds, they wouldn't, but they're able to escape it because the cycles pass on and people forget. And like, we need them to remember.
We need them to remember. And in the meantime, there are simple changes they could make. And we're going to talk about a few of those, to protect kids from like drug content and sextortion threats. A lot of platforms use technology to block this type of behavior, or at least offer the child help in those situations. So can you talk about like how some of that technology works that they could use?
First, we've talked about this. The ephemeral messaging is problematic because not only do they not have a record of when bad stuff happens to give to law enforcement, etc., it also is encouraging a kid to like take more risk.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's giving them the message like, you're not going to get caught, or like you're going to get away with it. So taking away the ephemeral nature of it only for minors or even 16 and under would probably like signal to kids and reduce the amount that kids kind of lean into some of like the riskier behaviors.
Yeah.
On the sextortion front specifically, we need to figure out better ways to create walls between stranger adults and kids. So even when they're like, oh, well, we're not going to recommend strange adults to kids anymore. When I say strange, I just mean unknown to them, right? An unknown adult, not a strange adult. Although they are a strange adult if they're going to sextort them. But there can't be workarounds, right? So like if they then message the kid and say, add me, or are able to comment, and then the kid adds them, and then they're able to, like, it just can't be the kind of thing where there's like an easy workaround.
Yeah.
Because that is one way that sextortionists we know are getting in touch with kids.
And you talked about the ephemeral messaging, so like the disappearing messages. And it's problematic that it disappears on the front end because it makes kids act poorly. It makes predators flock to the platform to use it. But the bigger problem is that they disappear also on the back end, on Snap's servers. They literally erase evidence of crimes. And so this is a huge issue, and something that actually, I'm going to play a quick clip from Laura. Laura touches on they could just stop deleting things on the back end And you could still have the same experience on the front end.
If I could change one thing about Snap that I think would have the biggest impact, and Snap knows this, the one thing, the reason kids like Snap is not because they destroy everything forever and don't preserve things and police can't find evidence. They like the privacy, right? So you could have a Snap where on the front end it works identical. On the front end, your snaps disappear, you have that layer of privacy. On the back end, they do what every other company does, and they set their servers up so that it's not either not preserving or wiping out on the back end. They could do this, and kids would love it still. The people that wouldn't love it are the predators, because now when police come to Snap and say, hey, I've got a child who's died, here's my warrant, I need evidence, Snap would actually be like, here you go, and then they would go arrest the guy.
It seems so simple.
It seems so simple. I mean, I'm talking about providing the evidence when they get a warrant, when Snap gets a warrant. The examples that we heard of them, Snap not responding to warrants or sometimes taking months to respond, that's not good enough. And so we need some kind of system where they have to respond within 24, 72 hours. In the example of Aaron Ping and his son Avery passing away, Aaron told us he believes Avery would be alive today if Snapchat had responded to the first warrant on that drug dealer within 72 hours. One last thing I want to bring up is the quick ad. So when you log into Snapchat is constantly asking you to quick add a bunch of people that you may or may not know. This is a feature that connects predators with children constantly. And I want to have John Haidt kind of touch on this a little bit more.
If they eliminated the quick ad feature, that's really the thing that connects lots of people to strangers. Just eliminate the quick ad feature. Let people add their own friends. Let them meet people. And then, so they could stop this, but they don't.
Parents ask me a lot. My kid needs Snap because their friends won't communicate with them any other way. And they have no friends if they can't have Snap. That's literally what I keep hearing. And so parents are like, can't I just lock it down? Like turn off certain things that I feel to be harmful? Unfortunately not, but that would be incredible to allow parents to disable Snap Map, the Spotlight, the quick ad feature, the encrypted data vault, My Eyes Only.
Is there a Snap for kids where they do age verification?
No.
And it's just for younger kids and they only add their friends they know and then they could communicate? Is that something?
No. I mean, they do such little age verification that's like 13% of 8 to 12-year-olds in the U.S. use Snapchat.
That many?
Yeah. About 3 million in the U.S. kids under 12 or under 13 are on Snapchat,
How are they
according
able
to Common Sense
register
Media.
if... Oh.
They just use another birthday, but I don't know how Common Sense Media was able to pull that, but I'll include the survey. Oh, it's survey. Yeah, it's a survey, right.
Okay.
We covered a lot of issues around like compulsive use and mental health harms of Snapchat. There are several things that Snapchat could do, like disabling the streaks feature, which causes teens to feel like they have to log in and send photos to each other compulsively. We talked about that in part 1 of this episode. Also, a lot of the filters are extremely harmful. And then the spotlight. I mean, that's something that seems like an obvious area where I don't want my child seeing content from all over Snapchat that Snapchat's choosing for them.
Right.
So our next part of the conversation is how do we get Snapchat to make changes to protect our children?
And I think, like, honestly, there's some big questions about, like, look, we just listed all the things we want them to change. Those are kind of all the distinguishing features of Snap. So I think there are bigger questions about, are we asking them to change or are we really trying to, like, steer kids away from this platform altogether? It doesn't mean that we shouldn't push them to make changes because there are millions of kids on there now and there will be for some time.
Right.
So we need these changes to happen. And I think how we're both feeling is that like impact litigation probably has its best shot here, plus regulation and pressure from the public, pressure from consumers. Remember, we as the users are the people that they are trying to please. So if we also rise up and say we don't want this and we don't want that for minors or kids under 15, 16, whatever we decide, like, and there's enough of us, then they will feel the heat.
We want to bring opportunities for parents to put that pressure on. But when it comes to laws and lawsuits, Laura had a really good quote. They said, litigation and legislation should work hand in hand. Advocates have been working really hard to get laws passed to force companies like Snapchat to be safer. It's been difficult because the social media companies spend tons of money lobbying against these laws. We talked about how Snapchat tries to say they're not even social media, therefore trying to avoid regulation. So, we're always pushing on that and hoping to make progress, if not on a federal level, like on state level, but passing laws has been tough.
Coming up with some kind of rule where they can't say that they're not social media is going to be important. Continuing to alert people they are social media. So allowing your kid to have Snap is allowing your kid to have social media.
It is interesting,
not
too.
as a criticism of the parent, just to be clear about what it is.
Because more and more parents are getting on board with delaying social media for their kids. But if Snapchat's trying to squeeze under the mat and be like, well, we're not social media, then it must be safe. So moving forward from legislation, we're going to talk about lawsuits. And we've already mentioned some, and I think in part one of this breakdown of Snapchat, but I'm going to play a clip from Jonathan Haidt here related to lawsuits.
And so there's no way to persuade them. There's no way to make arguments or moral arguments to change them. That's not going to happen. There are only two routes. One is legislation, and states are trying to do that, but then the companies sue them and say that they don't have jurisdiction or this is not proper. And the other is federal. The legislative angle doesn't seem to be working. So that leaves only one method, which is the courts. And if you think about it, when you look at the industrial scale damage, I forget what the tobacco settlement was, hundreds of billions of dollars. I can't remember what it was. This should be trillions. I haven't done a back of the envelope calculation, but I think what we're looking at is the largest scale harm to children ever committed. Maybe there was in the Industrial Revolution, maybe, the coal mines, I don't know what, but I'm saying in modern times, we can't point to a modern company that has harmed so many children so severely as these three companies.
And he's talking about Snapchat, Apple, and Meta.
Wow. As he said, these lawsuits will mirror the tobacco lawsuits, and there will be settlements in the ranges of the hundreds of millions, if not billions. I mean, he said trillions. But I think, and in an instance like Snap, that could jeopardize their existence.
Right.
They're actually not as big as the Apples and Metas.
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see how those lawsuits play out. And I think the more and more we can tell the stories behind the lawsuits and help people understand who's been harmed, the families and the kids, and at the scale that is real, it'll continue to hold power, and maybe they'll make some of these changes while we wait for those lawsuits to unfold.
We have dozens of U.S. states have sued Snapchat. Thousands of families have sued Snap. Some of these are going to trial this coming year, early in the year, so we're going to be following those. I do think just the awareness of seeing these CEOs grilled in a jury trial will be a really good way for parents to get up to speed here. And then also, Laura said something really interesting that I want to quote. Something most people do not realize is that corporate accountability doesn't mean we have to win them all. The defendants have to win every battle to preserve their predatory business model, while all consumers need for real progress is to break through one time, to show that it can be done so that the courthouse doors stay open for everyone who deserves the opportunity to seek justice. So we really only need one big win to make a huge change here and protect all the kids on platforms like Snapchat. It's really important for us at The Heat Is On to follow these lawsuits and bring this information to parents. So we are going to be doing that in real time on this podcast. So stay tuned for that soon.
Take you inside the courtroom.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, guys.
And it's a lot of stuff that Snap doesn't want you to see. I just even remember from the one hearing that I sat in, there was a big discussion about how, adults are buying drugs on Snapchat and that part's okay. So they're navigating that while the kids, they just don't want kids buying them. And I was like, I don't think a lot of people know that adults are buying lots of drugs either.
Right. So parents might be feeling like I do, I don't want to wait for laws and lawsuits to conclude. I need to put pressure on them now. This is not okay. I'm really pissed off that this is all happening. And so we need to come together, put collective action and pressure on these companies. I'm going to play you one clip from Amy Neville. I love what she said here about getting a movement of parents together.
We have to create a public outcry. We have to get people to join us in this fight. We have to get to that critical mass. And once we reach a critical mass of people calling out, suing, demanding legislation, that's where the magic's going to happen. And that's where we're going to see these companies change their ways.
Just the fact that that is a mother of someone who's died, who still has that much hope, and it's just so inspiring.
I know.
And so she's so strong.
So there are actually lots of ways for parents to get involved. And we are aggregating all of those ways and emailing people who sign up at scrollingtodeath.com/heat. So there's that. But another thing that we do is direct action work. And you guys specialize in that at Heat. And that can look like protesting.
Yep.
You know, there was a huge protest recently throughout America. And I screenshotted a couple of comments about those protests. And I was wondering if I can read them to you.
Please,
And you
I'd
can
love
give
that.
me your reaction. Okay. So, because I think this is some feedback I've heard from when I've attended a protest and people get
What does it
confused about.
matter?
Yeah. So this person says, no one has ever seen someone holding a sign and thought, yeah, I'm going to think like them now. What a waste of time.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think you're asking the wrong question sometimes if you're looking at it to like, who are you winning over or not? It's more about who you're messaging to and whether they feel like they have to change because their power is being threatened. So collective action is about showing that you hold a truth and a power together to shine a light on something that needs to be illuminated, right? And or pushed for, or you're fighting for justice. And it's all, in my mind, at least with these companies, when we show up and stand there and speak our truth and stand alongside survivor parents and other types of survivors, we are saying this is an injustice that needs to be righted. And you don't know where we're going to show up and how many more we'll bring next time. And all corporate companies don't like surprises, and they're always worried about their brand. And if you start seeing like hundreds of people showing up all the time complaining about something, people are like, what's going on with that company?
Right.
And I've felt that before because I've had people walk by me when we're doing direct action and say those kinds of comments. And you just have to remember that it's not about convincing every single person. It's about who you're directing the energy towards.
And we most recently did a direct action at the Apple Store in New York. I mean, we made eye contact with Tim Cook. He saw the hundreds of parents and children and survivors walking calmly and peacefully with signs, and it has to make a difference.
Yep. Well, he was really uncomfortable. Someone said the way, like, his reaction with his face was not of someone who felt good about, like, where they stood. Like, if they felt good about all the decisions they would make, they'd just smile back and wave.
Right.
Right? But you could tell that he was really rattled by it, which I think demonstrates he knows there's truth to it.
Yeah. Okay, so one more comment that I found. How is standing around holding signs with like-minded people doing anything? It's not. You're not fighting for anything. You're just standing around. It's just like so the opposite. It's just so the opposite.
I guess it's just like, have we studied any social movements or what's brought about change ever, right?
I know, right.
It's not standing around, actually. It's like active. To protest, to demonstrate, to take direct action is an active role in the solution making. It's not a passive one where you're just hoping things will change. And I don't disagree that I can understand why it seems that way sometimes, because maybe you don't have the patience to see the whole arc and see where, like, what role that one played in getting to the final goal.
Right.
But the faster that people join us and the more pressure that we apply, the faster we will see the result of that arc. And the companies fearing that their brand and their is going to, crumble.
Right. And more children will be protected sooner.
Yep.
And so this is opportunities that will come your way.
Yeah.
So pay attention to those emails. So we like to leave parents with 3 things you can do today to push back on this company, Snapchat, today. So number 1, join the email list at scrollingtodeath.com/heat. We will send you simple ways you can advocate for change and get involved.
I would say number 2 is to have a conversation with your family about the dangers of Snap and that pill conversation. Do not buy a pill on Snapchat. Do not take a pill from a friend who's bought something on Snapchat. Like, in that conversation, hopefully the takeaway will also be like, is this something you should have access to at this point? Is this a safe environment for you? And I would really encourage people to watch that Rolling Stones article that like really walks people through the history of how this went down with like the fentanyl deaths and like the cover-ups that kind of happened at Snap in those earlier years, because it gives you that full picture very fast.
And if you haven't watched part 1 of this 2-part episode, we cover it in a lot of detail there too, and I'll include those links in the episode notes. But third thing, just talk to one like family member, colleague, sibling, like about this, because this is something all parents are pretty worried about. And now we have the information right in front of us to show us that this platform is not safe. We need to have conversations with our kids and our family members about what we can do about it.
You said something about how a lot of parents tell you that their kid needs it. And that like kind of broke my heart a little bit, but also because I understand that you don't want to hold your kid back from like having friends or like being in the conversation. Parents aren't doing anything wrong.
Right.
They're trying to navigate a really hard situation where an extremely dangerous product has become extremely popular. And so we either need to get the product to change, or we should all go to a different place for our kids to chat that's safer.
And that's one thing about talking to another parent about this is if you both restrict Snapchat, then your kids will be forced to talk on some other kind of platform, which is bound to be safer. So thank you for everyone hanging in there. This was a lot and it was a little bit overwhelming, but I think we have some great action steps to move forward with. Thank you for tuning in to The Heat is On Snapchat. This is a special series from Scrolling to Death in partnership with Heat Initiative.
Next time, The Heat is on Meta.
Until then, stay loud, stay fired up, and never stop fighting for our kids. On the next episode of The Heat is On.
They didn't let us do anything. They didn't let us stop recommending children to adults. They didn't let us block messages. They didn't let us do anything.
They know that they're harming kids, they're harming their social lives. You know, many of us have been documenting that the loneliness epidemic basically begins when kids get on Instagram in 2012. Like, it's very specific. It's right around 2012 plus or minus a year.
The tool of plausible deniability is really what they stand behind in so many of their efforts to circumvent accountability.
Join us next week for a new episode. This time, The Heat is on Meta.